and some elevation. So this is the south elevation, which would be along the avenue. The east elevation along 3rd Street. The west elevation along 2nd, which you're probably all familiar. This site on the west side is a little bit, the grade changes. So there's some grade things. So when you are actually walking on the sidewalk on 2nd and you start going north, you won't be actually walking along the entirety of this facade due to the underpass of the railroad tracks. And then this side on the north elevation. If anybody has questions, I can flip through, and I also have the packet open if there's images from the packet that anybody has questions on or would like to speak to. The applicant is here and has a presentation prepared. That's staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of the group?
Madam Chair, other than the reason that you just said this is located in the residential area, that was one of the reasons why it is scored the lower point. Is any other reasons? What other reasons?
So, for the most part, we feel that because it's not a mixed-use project, so there's no commercial or retail component, has a lot, and I thank you for that question, that it's solely a residential project was one of the reasons that it didn't score as high. So you don't have quite as much of the street activation as you would if you had a commercial or retail use on that ground floor. You know, it is in a different area, a little bit on the edge of downtown. We're not kind of right in the core, and that is really a lot more where we see those mixed-use projects. And this is the second time that your board has seen a residential-only project, and only the 4th time you've seen a new construction project since the adoption of the 2019 plan. And so we're still kind of getting a feel for how applications are kind of ranking in that sense as well.
Thank you.
I just want to confirm that the parking is under building but not underground.
Correct. On the ground floor, there is no underground parking. It is all on the ground floor, and then above that would be the residences. Yep.
Okay, or more to my concern, there's no exposed parking. It's within the footprint of the building.
And the applicant can speak to this, but you can see some parking on the east side here. But if I'm understanding correctly, that is utilizing maybe some concrete that is existing today, but the applicant can speak to that a little bit more.
And is that the wall then to the,
Yeah.
on 2nd Street, that it's behind a wall, and there's, somebody driving on 2nd is not gonna be able to see the parking?
Right, yep, so yeah, so there is a grade change as you go down from the underpass of the railroad here.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how's the height of this building compared to the buildings around it?
That's a great question. You know, city center loft, so you can see in the image here, looks like it's about 5 stories. This is a 6-story building. City Hall is 3 floors, but it has a little bit of a higher, you know, the higher presence than maybe a typical 3-story building would be. In this area, you can see on the left image too, these are, you know, some older structures. And so I think upon redevelopment, we would anticipate some higher scaled structures than there are today.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Mike, did you have any comments from Kilbourne Group? Or you? Oh, you do? Okay. I'll wait. If there are no other questions, should we go
Could I
ahead?
just clarify, and maybe the presenter can answer that too. So I'm still looking at the facade facing the east, and it doesn't look very pedestrian friendly, but there is that separation. Can you explain that a little bit more, Megan?
Sure. So this is the east facade along 2nd Street. And so you'll see starting on the left side, which is south. So if you're facing east, 4th Avenue would be on the left. And then with the grade change in the sidewalk, as you, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but there's some shadow of some people here. As you would start to walk north, you would actually go down with the road to go under the railroad tracks. And so this is a little bit
Fairly steep
yes.
grade.
Yeah, it is, and it happens fairly quickly, and so it looks like there is some treatment given to what would be mostly seen outside of that wall. And then,
Okay.
you know, as you would move further north, there is some blankness there, but it is not at the sidewalk level.
Okay.
Okay. And go ahead with your presentation. Please introduce yourself.
Yes. My name is Deb Wendell-Dobb, and I'm a project manager for development at Kilbourne Group. Thank you, Renaissance Zone Authority and Chair, for allowing us the opportunity to present a little bit more detail on the project. One of the questions in the Play with a Purpose evaluation mentioned about green space for the residents or for the public. And I just want to elaborate, we can go to the next slide, that the main level parking is enclosed and it covers the majority of the site. And it's a U-shape building that faces the river. And for an example, we show the ND Apartments from Duluth, Minnesota. And this is a similar structure. It has the podium level parking with the wood frame construction above the podium level. And it creates an opportunity for amenity space on that exposed roof. And in this case, it faces Lake Superior. And in our case, it would face the Red River and the parks and that green space. And so we anticipate that there will be grills, fire pits, different seating areas, some raised planter beds, an artificial turf out there for some yard games. And so this is the sort of design vision for that rooftop space. Next slide, please. And then in the southeast corner, as you're coming through the flood wall towards 4th Avenue, the building structure, and you can see it's at an angle that matches the trail on the riverside. And so it's kind of a formal backdrop to when you approach 4th Avenue. There is some opportunity for green space within the property line. And you can see the property line, runs at an angle with 2nd Street, and then it jogs back and has some various angles as it goes north. We're proposing, there is a grade change from that southeast corner of the building floor level to the grade, so there would have to be some steps or ramp. And as we're developing this, you notice there's a lot of storefront elevation on the south side. And we're converting some of those southeast parking stalls to equipment storage for like kayaks. You see the bicycles. We'll have some lockers there for cross-country skis. And we really want to emphasize that this is a project for people, active adults, wanting a lifestyle to enjoy the outdoors and the amenities that are already along the river, such as kayaking and biking and walking on the trail, cross-country skiing. And there's an opportunity at that southeast corner for increased streetscape in the right-of-way. You can see that the property line is set back a bit now from where the lines are shown for the sidewalk. And so it could include, trees, benches, and other streetscape amenities that you find in a highly amenitized right-of-way. We do show some surface parking, and when Kilbourne Group was looking at developing this property some years ago, there were conversations about allowing some surface parking in this right-of-way area, and we don't have a formal agreement for it, and we're prepared to have those conversations further with the city. But this would be some surface parking. We're proposing that there would be some plantings. You see the arrow pointing up towards the south end of that parking area, and there'd be some planting to screen that parking lot.
How would the cars access that particular parking space?
Well, there's a vacated 5th Avenue, and we're planning not to build on that area. So it would be an access route, as well as driving through the enclosed parking that you could drive through to the surface parking. We're planning to have some electrical meters mounted on that north wall, and we'd also have a transformer sitting in that area on the north side of the building. And then we have the trash room, so that the trash would be picked up from the north side.
Are there any other questions of Deb? Thank you very much, Deb. Nice job. Any other discussion on this project? If not, there is a page 4, a suggested motion for recommending approval.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Prakash. Any other discussion? If none, roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Madell.
Aye.
Matthew. Prakash.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Swiatek.
Yes.
Preston.
Aye.
Brashani.
Yes.
Matter.
Yes. We have a unanimous vote on that. Thank you for your presentation and all the work that the staff has done on that too. Nice work. And we look forward to seeing a completed project. What is the suggested finish date? 24?
Summer or fall of 2024.
Okay. Mr. Gilmore, good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to provide you with an update on the different proposals that you looked at on the 3 different city properties. The last one, I think it was a consensus of the committee to see if there was a way to do both projects, because one was up on 4th Avenue North, the other was on 3rd Avenue North. We had several meetings with the banks and the developers and looked at different concepts. I want to thank Commissioner Preston for participating in that, but in the end, there just wasn't a way to get both projects done in a manner that would satisfy all 3 parties. And so what I've done is I've just put it on the City Commission agenda for Monday. Really, there are 3 options for the City Commission, to accept one of the 2 offers or to simply decline both offers. And so I'm not sure what they'll do, but the City Commission was quite familiar with the presentations, and so that's why I just thought we'd go directly to them. Also, the city attorney did have some concerns about us continuing to meet, because we were getting not only 3 city commissioners at the meeting, but Commissioner Strand was attending as well, and there was a concern whether or not we were having city commission meetings that weren't properly noticed or proper minutes. So just wanted to provide you with that information. When the city commission, if they do make a decision, you may see an application for that site or for one of those 2 sites at your May meeting. There's at least one of the developers is anxious to get going. I also should note the Epic, that Gateway redevelopment. I don't think they've submitted an application yet, but I know they hope to start construction this fall, and so you'll see that application for Renaissance Zone. I should also just touch on the 501 Main Avenue. I think it was a year ago you approved Renaissance Zone for the redevelopment of that parking lot on the corner of Broadway and Main Avenue. We're continuing to work with that developer. They do have letters of intent for 3 different tenants now, and financing is coming together, and they hope to break ground this fall. So if you're wondering why nothing started there, it's just been kind of difficult with financing and lining up the prospective tenants that they had, as well as working out some parking agreements with Bell Bank, who purchased the parking ramp across the street. So be happy to answer any questions on any of those projects.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Jim, I know this is way too late in this process, but for next time, if we run into this, because surface parking lots are not in the in-focus plan, and certainly not where we're headed, a question was posed to me: could we put a contingency on the developer agreement, which would be American Federal, in using that surface lot, that in so many years that lot would be developed into something other than a surface parking lot?
I think you're right. I think that might, just stop the project. I don't know that they'd be agreeable that you met with them also and.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible this time, but keeping it in mind,
I
if
think
we
that's-
ever run into this again, we need to look at some kind of option like that probably.
Yeah, and typically, what we'll do with Kilbourne, we'll have if they, don't break ground by a certain date, the city has an option to acquire the property back. That's one of the things we
Okay.
put in when we're selling
Okay.
it directly to a developer. So that's in we actually haven't even signed with 501 Main yet because, we don't want to sell it as a park and then just have it continue to be a parking lot. So we want the option to repurchase
Okay.
the sites. I know with this particular property, I've been working with the city attorney, how do we stage the sale so that if, we don't want to sell it and then it turns into a parking lot and then the other one doesn't develop either. And so trying to line up all that sequence, we're working
Okay.
on that also.
So let me just clarify one more question if I could. So this option for the city to buy it back, is that ongoing? Or is there a time limit to that?
I'll use the 501 Main example. If we close on them this year and they don't break ground by the end of the year, then the city has an option for the next year to acquire it back.
Okay, sorry, let me,
And
I'm not
it can
fully
go on
understanding.
longer.
If this was developed into a surface parking lot, let's say, would the option to buy it back be part of that agreement? And how long would that option be in place?
It's whatever we would put in agreement. When we did the Kessler project with Kilbourne Group, I think we gave them like 3 years and then we had the option to buy that parking lot back behind the black building if they, weren't able to build
Okay.
that building. So, it's.
So in this case, it might be wise to prolong that, make it longer perhaps, if we can. So that it doesn't get sold as to another owner and it stays a surface parking lot.
In this case, we had like a 3-year option. If they didn't develop it, then we had a year to buy it back. Now, if we don't take that option, then we lose the property, so. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Item 4, other business and public comment. The only question I have is, how are we doing for blocks? Will we review that later this year? Megan?
Thank you for that question. Generally, it happens in the Renaissance Zone there are often a couple of blocks that are kind of in our back pocket. And so if there are other projects that come up that aren't in the boundary, there's some flexibility there. The last time I believe it was updated was in 2019. So anytime that we do the Renaissance Zone development plan update, that is looked at. And then if projects come forward. And so we have not heard inquiries from anyone who's currently outside of the Renaissance Zone for doing projects at this time, so we don't foresee a boundary change
Okay.
until that would happen.
Are there any blocks that are completed that don't need to be in the zone anymore?
There's potential for that. We did look at that in 2019, and we had some
Right.
conversation with the state on the timing of when you remove a block, and you can only, once a block is outside of the zone, it can't go back in the zone, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
And so, they have to be contiguous, so there's kind of a balance of what needs to happen with the blocks as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Go
if I
ahead.
could say something there. So I know there's a satellite site right now, but eventually it might be wise to think about reserving some of these blocks to do another satellite project, and South University would be a real logical place for that.
would.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Very possible we'll move in that direction in the future. Who knows? Go ahead.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
just real quick, I do think we should consider the next legislative session requesting for more blocks, because not only the census, we're a growing area, and so I think it would be a good sales pitch. So, and I think it's something that all of us as a group, I think we should kind of do an audit of where we sit now, but then maybe start preparing to have some additional blocks, because it's a successful thing and we want to keep the success going. And I think that would be an opportunity the president has much more experience with dealing with the legislature than we do, but you do too. But I do think it's something that all of us could participate in, and I think having a mix of all of us, that's very influential too. So thank you.
Thank you. That's good input. Any other questions or comments to come before the authority? If none, our next meeting is scheduled for May 25th, and we are adjourned.